New York's Drive Clean rebate gives residents of the state up to a $2,000 break when purchasing a new electric car or plug-in hybrid from a participating car dealership. It went into effect on March 21, 2017, and since then, from April to June, EV plug-in hybrid car sales are up 74% over the same time period last year according to InsideEVs. New York's favorite green car since the new incentive went into effect is the Toyota Prius Prime, with more than 40% of the rebates processed for that car. The Chevy Bolt claimed 12%, while the Chevy Volt and Ford Fusion Energy counted for 10% each. The most receptive part of New York to the Drive Clean rebate is Long Island, with 33% of applicants hailing from that region. The Drive Clean rebate is part of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in New York by 40% by 2030. The state government is also contributing to this goal with a plan to almost double the number of public charging stations in New York from 1,700 to 3,000 in 2018. Those extra charging stations planned will be good for the many New Yorkers who are quickly adopting plug-in vehicles. This successful incentive is further evidence that high costs are one of the biggest factors in the slow adoption of electrified cars. Electric and plug-in hybrids are the fastest-selling cars on the used market, with drivers more willing to buy them after they've taken a depreciation hit. If you're wondering when alternative fuel cars will really take off, wait until the costs before incentives come down to truly be equal or lower than conventional internal combustion engine counterparts. Tesla has fallen behind on production of its mass-market Model 3 vehicle, making only 260 cars in the third quarter of 2017. It says production bottlenecks are the reason behind its less than anticipated delivery of its cheapest electric car, but emphasized there would be no fundamental issues with the Model 3 production or supply chain. Although the vast majority of manufacturing subsystems at both our California car plant and our Nevada Gigafactory are able to operate at high rate, a handful have taken longer to activate than expected, Tesla said in its third quarter statement. Tesla said it delivered a total of 26,150 vehicles in the third quarter, including 14,065 Model S and 11,865 Model X cars, an increase of 17.7% on the second quarter of 2017. In July, Tesla chief executive Elon Musk warned of manufacturing hell for Tesla when it aimed to produce 5,000 Model 3s per week by the end of 2017 and 10,000 per week next year. Mr. Musk has his sights set on adding a commercial electric truck alongside his mass-market electric cars. The entrepreneur has set the scheduled unveiling of the electric truck to October, a month later than previously expected. Tesla's electric truck is expected to have a range of 200 to 300 miles. Mr. Musk also has his eyes set beyond the car market, as he looks to transport humans to Mars by 2022 using autonomous spacecraft carried by his SpaceX rockets. The billionaire's love affair with space travel is marked by his desire to stockpile 3 new spacecraft models, adding to his current fleet of 3 rockets. General Motors announced today that it will introduce 2 new all-electric vehicles within the next 18 months, the first of at least 20 new EVs that the automaker will launch by 2023. GM also renewed its commitment to hydrogen fuel cell technology, a clean fuel concept that still needs major infrastructure upgrades before it can become a viable alternative. At a press conference in Detroit this morning, GM's Executive Vice President of Global Product Development Mark Roos said that the company was committed to an all-electric future, but cautioned that it wasn't going to happen by flipping a switch. "These aren't just words in a war of press releases," Roos added. "We are far along in our plan to lead the way to that future world." The new cars that will be introduced will be based on learnings from the Chevy Bolt, GM's well-received mass-market EV. But that doesn't mean that GM's future EVs will look exactly like the Bolt, or even share a similar architecture. "Whatever we do, from an electrification standpoint, the next version will be better than the version we have on the road," Roos said. "That vision involves everything that we've learned from the Bolt, but the architecture piece of this continues to evolve. That includes lighter vehicles and more flexible battery packs with an evolving number of fuel cells," he added. GM's announcement is part of a broader push by automakers worldwide to transition their production toward all-electric vehicles and away from internal combustion engine cars. Last month, Daimler AG, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, said it plans to offer electrified versions of all of its cars by 2022. Volvo said it would cease production of gas-only vehicles by 2019. And Volkswagen said it would electrify its entire 300-car lineup by 2030. But compared to its competitors, GM's announcement was slightly more tame, committing to almost 24 new all-electric vehicles while steering clear of a much grander promise of across-the-board electrification. Because of the different regulatory environments and the different duty cycles that our customers want, there isn't a single year that I can give you on that, Roos said. GM also unveiled a new concept vehicle, the SURUS, or Silent Utility Rover Universal Superstructure, a fuel cell-powered, four-wheel steer concept vehicle on a heavy-duty truck frame that's driven by two electric motors. Roos said that GM's hydrogen-powered cars will likely lean toward commercial applications, like delivery trucks or ambulances. This makes more sense than producing retail fuel cell cars, like competitors like Honda, Hyundai, and Kia are doing. Outside of California, the fueling infrastructure for hydrogen cars is practically non-existent. Electrification is all the rage in the auto industry, but the cars themselves represent only a tiny fraction of the entire market. Roos was bullish on GM's ability to turn a profit, however. "We will be profitable," he said. Period. Electric car owners will be paid for letting an energy company use their vehicle's battery in a pioneering scheme to increase take-up of the cleaner vehicles and help power grids manage the growth in green energy. Nissan and one of the UK's biggest challenger energy suppliers, OVO, will offer the vehicle-to-grid service to buyers of the Japanese carmaker's new Leaf from next year. After installing a special charger in a customer's home, the supplier will take over the management of the car's battery, with owners able to set a minimum amount of charge they want for driving the next day. OVO will then automatically trade electricity from the battery, topping it up during off-peak periods when power costs about 4p per kilowatt-hour, and selling it at peak times for about 4 times as much. The OVO chief executive, Stephen Fitzpatrick, said the savings would cover the £350 £400 annual cost of charging an electric car. Being able to feed back into the grid will mean that customers will be able to drive for free, he said. There are about 100,000 plug-in cars in the UK, but National Grid has warned their rapid growth will require the equivalent of a few new nuclear power stations. However, the cause batteries could also help energy networks cope with the increasing but variable wind and solar power on the system, by returning power to the grid at times of peak demand and smoothing out inconsistencies in energy supply. The government recently launched a £20 million fund for research into such vehicle-to-grid technology, which has previously been confined to private pilots but will now be open to consumers. Fitzpatrick predicted that while the technology would initially have a relatively modest impact on the take-up of electric vehicles and easing pressure on the grid, it was the thin end of a very important wedge. In future, the flexibility provided by allowing power grid managers to draw on millions of electric cars would be transformational, he said. As well as avoiding the need for costly grid upgrades paid for through energy bills, it could reduce the number of new power stations that need to be built, Fitzpatrick added. Nissan and OVO have also collaborated to sell a £4,800 home battery system to households with solar power, similar to the Powerwall made by Elon Musk's Tesla. The battery is pitched as a way for buyers to make more money from their solar panels, and OVO will pay owners about £350 a year for allowing it to offer services to the power grid.